You want to know what the patterns are so you can play, so you can make the most out of your life, so you can deal with the challenges quickly, and you can find the way to succeed at the highest level.
What is the root cause of me living in that fear? Then we can start to, again, mend the wounds and create meaning from those wounds, and then create a new meaningful mission moving forward.
It's not a belief system, it's a fact that you've got skills, genius, potential is sitting inside of you, and you have not seen it yet.
Nobody's going to believe in you until you've done something.
That's right.
Have you done anything to make people believe in you?
Right.
You know, you don't just get people to believe in you. You got to do
The thirst is for potential. My play is not money, it's not a bigger plane, it's not more real estate, even though I want all those things.
Yeah.
It is potential, is the discovery of my potential.
I get asked often, and I know you probably do too. Hey, I'm in a relationship where I live with someone who's not as driven as I am. Doesn't share my ambition. Might even be antagonistic towards some of my visionary thinking. Or even I come back from an event where I'm transformed, but they weren't in that same environment. So I'm in an environment, or I work somewhere where it's negative. Do you have any advice for someone in transcending a not supportive or negative environment?
The first thing is what you and I have already said, so I don't want to be repetitive, but I got to be repetitive. You've got to be in the strongest physical state or your mind's not going to work there. Okay. And then secondly, you've got to feed that mind. Those two things are prerequisite, because it doesn't matter what the external environment is. If the internal environment is re-engineered, I mean, think of it this way. You can try and take a general car and try and do a Sahara Desert run, or one of these crazy races that we could go for 7 days, right? You're gonna die, or you're gonna be crushed in the first 2 hours. But they've engineered those cars so that those trucks, so they can take the hit, so they can go through the desert, so they can go through the rain, so they can make all those things. We are in the middle of winter, and we need to re-engineer ourselves. We can't just sit around and say, I can't wait till it gets better. It doesn't work that way. You got to re-engineer you so that winter is your season, so that you're not freezing to death. You're learning to snowboard or ski or build this new version of your business or be with your family. I mean, literally, there is an advantage. And I know it sounds unbelievably overly optimistic, positive thinking, but you know me well enough, that's not where I come from. It's just smart. Intelligence shows everything will provide an opportunity. I have a 9-year-old daughter as a result of COVID, because we tried for years. I was like, I've never been home this long. I said, okay, if I can be home and serve 10 times many people, which I've been doing, I've had seminars that used to be 10, 15,000 people at a stadium, and now I've got seminars of 800,000 people, right? It's like, I can reach more people, come home to my daughter, be with my wife, but there was advantages. There was, I lost $100 million in the first 6 months of this area, and I could handle the business thing, but it's like in my mission, screw the economics. How do I turn this around? But then you find a way to turn around, find a way to serve people. Now I get to see whole families, because a lot of my seminars people do now digitally. Not just this free one, but my regular ones. I built this giant stadium, and now I can see in their living room. I see them with their kids who they didn't want to leave before to go, or their husband who walks by going, what is this? Within a day, he's like, this is incredible, So there's an opportunity that has to be found, but you got to build your first base within you so that it isn't the environment. Now, does the environment play a role? Of course. If you're a great sprinter and you try to run in mud, you're not going to maximize your capacity. And that's why it's critical to have a chosen family, so to speak. I have my family who I adore and love. And I have a friend I talked to the other day that I've known, since my first son was born. So, 40 years, right? A little less than 40. And he's a good guy, and he's doing better now. But years and years ago, he was always just not growing. Everybody around complained about him. He was taking advantage of my name. He was doing the crazy stuff. So I stayed friends with him, but I literally at one point said, I'm going to be a friend forever. But I said, we're not going to hang unless something shifts. And it was one of the toughest things I ever did, but it was a really smart thing. And now, 40 years later, he's made a shift. We have a nice relationship. He's grown. But you got to choose who you're going to surround yourself with. Now, you can't do that sometimes. Family or whatever the case may be, your husband or wife isn't aligned. Then you got to find how to get that alignment. And that's your job. Your job in a relationship is not to go get something. Your job in a relationship is to bring something to the table, which means you got to know, what do they want? What do they need? What do they desire? What are their wounds? I mean, relationships is the easy thing in the world. You got to decide, what do I really want in detail? And then you got to decide, what does this person really want, need, desire? And then I got to get addicted to meeting those needs, because if I meet their needs and I love doing it, like in the beginning of a relationship, most people get so excited to light up their partner. After a few years, it's like, would you take out the trash? What? They lose the joy, they lose the passion.
Right.
So it's a long answer to you to say, I don't believe environment is the most important thing. In fact, I know it's not. The inner environment is the most important thing. I could take you person after person in the worst environment who found a way to thrive still. And so if you buy it's the environment, you're gonna end up being a victim, even though that's not your mentality. It's just where it goes. Now, can I enhance my environment? Can I choose people to bring into my environment? People I want to learn from, I want to get coached by, people I want to help? Yes, and that's critical for your long-term success.
I just think about so many things that you do, not just that you say. And there's a lesson in there that most people would miss, but because we were talking a little bit when it happened. COVID happens and you run a business a particular way. I'm talking about you. I mean, you've got other businesses, but
sure,
the one that you've got lots of them, right? But the one you're most well known for in the public is your outreach, the Date with Destinies, the Life Masteries, these the UPWs, these events. And it was very expensive. You get this gigantic team. You can't put events on. They're not happening. But yet you then took a risk. You made a calculated risk by building a studio and making an investment where you had no idea whether people, it was like you built it and hopefully they would come, right? And so that was a real ballsy move, gutsy move at that time that no one else was making other than you in the space. Everyone was a little bit frozen and you stepped forward and led. And I admired that so much. And I think right now there's a lot of people that are they're holding back a little bit. They're a little bit, gun shy right now. And I'm wondering if you think that's appropriate right now, or what advice you give to somebody who says, I'm just going to wait this out to see where the cards fall.
Yeah, that would certainly not be my recommendation, or I doubt yours.
Right.
Right. Because momentum is everything. Right. The hardest part in life is creating momentum. So when that all happened, I had built something of momentum over, 40 years, literally at that point. Around the world. And, what do you do all of a sudden when, suddenly they say you can't do an event with more than 10 people and you've got 15,000 people scheduled to take over the stadium? And you know what I did? I went, we're going to Vegas. They're never going to shut down Vegas, right? But then they shut down Vegas. I was like, I know I'm going to rent a mega church from a buddy of mine in Houston, 15,000 people. They're not going to keep Costco open and shut down the church. They kept Costco open and shut down the church. So I got to the point where it's like, what do you do? And when you think there's nothing you can do, that's when you can do something. When you think I don't know what to do, that's when you know what to do if you just push yourself. And so I was like, I pulled my team together. I saw a guy do like a webinar with 252-inch screens, and I said, I'll kill myself first. I said, I got to create an experience for people. They need it desperately, wherever they are in the world. So literally I pulled out a tape recorder, like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 20-foot high LED screens, 50 feet wide, highest resolution in the world, 0.67, 50 degrees, 180 degrees around me, around the back. I'm going to call my buddy Eric Yon, and I'm going to see if Zoom, we can expand him from the little 1,000 to 20,000 or 30,000. I'm going to hire a firm to create an app so they can shake it so it sends a signal and you can hear reality of people clapping, because the more shake it, the louder it gets. And I just started creating the whole thing in an hour there. So when I was done, my CFO says, Tony, after he saw all the numbers, it was over $20 million by the time we're done. He's like, Tony, should we rent some of this first? And I said to him, listen, first of all, you can't. I said, go do your best. Not what I'm looking for. I said, second of all, this is going to be this way for a while. Yeah. And we're going to use this to help more people. And that, when things go back to normal, we get to go do that too. And I just did a Date with Destiny where I had, 10,000 people from 97 countries. And then I had 500 people in front of me because I built the studio so that there's 40-foot high ceilings. So I could literally lift the 20-foot screen. And so now I have a hybrid event. People that want to come personally, I'm there. People that want to be in the middle of the night in some other country are able to participate. But all that comes from just taking action and momentum. Yeah. If you build momentum, you can accomplish anything. You've seen it in sports. You see a team that's dominating and then somebody steals the ball and the momentum changes. Yeah. Your job right now is to create momentum. And that's why I'm building this challenge, is basically to say to you, let's do a breakthrough for you right now so you know it's real. Let's get you to get a real result. Let's get you to shift yourself physically and mentally and emotionally so you can build that momentum, because it takes so much energy to rocket out of the atmosphere. It takes very little to take it out of the solar system. So that momentum, I think, is critical.
Yeah. Do you think we're going back, Tony, to normal? Going back to normal ever? Or do you believe we're going to be in some sort of hybrid economy going? Did this just accelerate what was inevitable by a decade because of the pandemic and we were heading here anyway? I'm really curious as to you talk to the best minds in the world, including your own. Where do you think we're going in terms of the economy?
I think there are major challenges ahead. We're in winter right now, but we have not seen our more challenging winter. And I don't say that out of being derogatory. Anybody could be right by being negative, right? But every year I fully prepare for a financial program I do where I bring in 6 or 7 billionaires and I bring experts in the field, like a Michael Saylor on crypto. I bring in Ray Dalio on finance. I mean, literally, the who's who of the financial world is who I get. And then I interview them 7 days and nights. Well, to prepare for that, I have to see where things are going. So, this is a book, by the way, if you don't already have, you should get Ray Dalio's newest book. It's called The Changing World Order. And it kind of answers your question by studying 500 years of history and showing you where we are. Right now, we have some major challenges ahead. I think in the short term, we're going to do fine. We're going to make nice moves, I'm sure. We'll figure things out. But over the long term, we have to be prepared because there's a cycle change that's happening. And you need to understand these types of things. I'd recommend a book to anybody who's uncertain about their life right now to give it perspective. There's a book called The Fourth Turning. I read it in 1997. Still one of my favorite books in terms of importance. Not favorite to read, I'll be honest with you, the writing, but the insights and what it basically shows. Bill Clinton gave me a book called Generations, written by the same authors, William Strauss and Neil Howe.
Okay.
And it's like 700 pages and it's 500 years of American history, Anglo-American history. And it shows that these patterns that we go through in history, they're just like seasons. There's a winter, there's a spring, there's a summer, there's a fall, and they're documentable. He did 1,000 years of Roman history and shared it. So this book on The Fourth Turning helped me understand that you got to know what season you're in. Because think about this, Ed. Like if you and I want to make a difference for somebody or our children, our grandchildren, there's 3 skills you got to master. If you're going to be in a world where right now, depending on you read Oxford studies, they say, by 2040, which is, you're going to blink your eyes and you're there. That's, 18 years.
Yeah.
You're going to see 45% of all current jobs will be gone, right? They're going to be replaced by robotics. They're replaced by algorithms. They're going to be replaced by artificial intelligence. So how do I take my 9-month-old daughter or my grandchildren and prepare them? 3 skills will make you successful no matter how long you live, no matter what changes in society. Skill number 1, it's the ability to recognize patterns. You're really good at it. You do it in finance, you do it in business.
Thank you.
I'm not just blowing you with smoke. That's why you're successful. Because when you recognize patterns, it allows you to go to the second step, which is use them. If you recognize financial patterns, you can do great things. You recognize patterns in business, you can turn around any business. That's what I've been doing. I have 105 companies now. We do $7 billion in business. And I have no business background. But I recognized the patterns and I studied the billionaires that started with nothing and said, what did they do? How did they do it? How did they turn it around? So if you can recognize patterns and if you can use them, you got a great advantage. But then gradually over time, if you're going to play the piano, you usually play other people's music initially. And then there's a point where you come through. Now you start creating patterns. And when you start creating patterns, that's when you become a dominant force in business, in life, in the marketplace, and with your children or anywhere else. And so for me, those are the 3 most important kind of skill sets that anybody's going to have. Wow. And for me, I'm looking around saying, okay, how do I help my friends see the patterns that are coming financially? How do I help see the patterns are coming physiologically? There's new breakthroughs happening right now in health that are going to just blow your mind because everything that's become digitized all of a sudden has this growth of doubling in capacity and halving in cost. We all know what's happened over decades. Well, that's happening to our health now. We're made up of DNA. We're made up of code. I just spent 3 years writing this book called Life Force. I'm really proud of it. It's not out yet. You can pre-order it.
Go pre-order it.
Yep. But what I can tell you is it's all regenerative medicine. It's things like, I'll give you a simplistic example. A fireman falls into the fire, burns his face off. Traditionally, up until 2 years ago, the way in which they help him to try to heal and his face will be disfigured is they put cadavers on there. That's how cadaver skin is how they've done it. Most people don't know that. It's horrific. It scars you. Now they have a spray gun at 7 hospitals here in the United States. They can take your stem cells and spray your stem cells on. And I've got in the book, you should see the pictures. Like 7 days later, it looks like this person wasn't burnt.
Oh my God.
It's mind-boggling. Wow. Cristiano Ronaldo, or a better example would be Jack Nicklaus. Jack Nicklaus was in so much pain, he couldn't stand for 10 minutes at a time. Now he's playing golf again. Right? With just some of these simple tools that are available. And there's things happen right now, and there are things that are coming over the next 24 to 36 months. So you want to know what the patterns are so you can play, so you can make the most out of your life, so you can deal with the challenges quickly, and you can find the way to succeed at the highest level. But if you're going to be if you're going to have an extraordinary life, you have to remember losers react, winners anticipate, leaders anticipate. Your job is to anticipate. So how do you anticipate? You read, you listen to podcasts, you find people who are the best in the world and figure out what they have to say. Not everybody's got an opinion, but if I talk to Ray Dalio, he's the most successful, hedge fund guy in history. He's brought more money back than anybody in history, and he's done it in good times and in bad since the 1970s. Good guy to talk to. He's got some decent insight, right? So I'm fortunate enough to have those people be my friends, because what I did, I went and wrote these financial books. And how'd I do it? I said, let me interview the 50 smartest financial people in the world that started with nothing. What do they have in common? How do they go about it? And then I made those distinctions, and then I teach them to people. I'm doing that now with regenerative medicine for health and vitality and energy as well.
Missing your meaningful mission. What causes someone to not know their mission and miss it? Is it they spend too much time in the former story, that they've taken meanings that don't serve them from the story? What causes somebody to do that?
All of that, and the fears that hold them back. And there's really 3 fears that I've identified, which is the fear of failure, the fear of success, and the fear of judgment. And when we can reflect on analyzing which one of these hold me back the most, and what is the root cause of me living in that fear, then we can start to, again, mend the wounds and create meaning from those wounds, and then create a new meaningful mission moving forward. For a lot of my life, I don't know if you've ever been in this place, I was so driven to succeed because I didn't feel enough. And I thought by succeeding, achieving, getting awards, getting followers, making more money would fill the hole of not feeling enoughness, not smart enough, not talented enough, not good looking enough, whatever it was. Is that something you've experienced in your past?
1,000,000,000% exactly the same. Yes.
And for me, I would get, I don't know about you, but when I would experience success in sports and then early in business, it's almost like 20 minutes after I accomplished a goal of 10 years I was chasing, I was angry.
Yep.
I don't know if you ever felt that way.
100%.
I was angry, and I was kind of like mad at everyone around me. Like when everyone's celebrating me, I was kind of like, get away from me.
Yes.
And I didn't understand it until I started the healing journey about 10 years ago. So this is what happened for me.
Okay.
I realized that my fear, when I started to dissect this, I was never afraid of failure, and I don't think you ever were either, because you're an athlete. And athletes who go through the journey of multiple sports, which we both played, multiple sports, we have coaches that say, hey, it's okay to fail, just adjust it a little bit, adjust your shot, adjust your swing a little bit.
Yeah.
You're going to miss it, but here's how you adjust it. It was always feedback. It was information. So it wasn't like you suck and leave if you fail. We failed every day.
Yes.
And we knew that this was the process to success.
I became familiar with failure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then the greatest, baseball players in the world fail 70% of the time, right?
Crazy.
It's like they're failing constantly, but we celebrate them for their successes. And so I was never like ashamed to like miss a shot or fail, because I knew it was just practice. And I always wanted success, so I wasn't afraid of success. I wanted success for the wrong reasons, though, and that's why I was upset and angry when I would accomplish it. And I feel like I needed more.
Me too.
But I was like, I want to accomplish success. I'm excited about it, so I'm not afraid of it. But I was afraid of judgment. I was afraid of the opinions of other people, and I was afraid of what people would say in front of my face, behind my face. Would they accept me? All these different things. When I ask people in a big room, who's afraid of failure? Most people raise their hand and say, this is a fear of mine. And that's why they don't launch their book or their podcast, or they don't start speaking on stage, or they don't start a new career or ask the person out. They're afraid to fail. And I ask people, okay, for everyone who's afraid of success, raise your hands. And almost equally amount of people raise their hand who are afraid of success. And I never understood it, because I always wanted it. And over the last 10 years, I started to ask why. There's a documentary called The Weight of Gold.
Okay.
I want people to watch this at some point, because it's about Olympic gold medalists who go depressed, commit suicide, have overdoses within like 6 months or a year after they win the gold. Okay. If we do not prepare ourselves for success, it could cripple us. And the pressure of, okay, now friends and family want more from you. I know you are extremely wealthy, and you've had to deal with probably lots of people asking for things all the time. Can you give me money? Can you help me with this? Can you do this for me? And in some ways, it's a great privilege to be generous and supportive to people, but when it feels inauthentic, you feel like people are taking advantage of you.
Yeah.
And so that pressure of success is real, and people don't want that responsibility. They're afraid of that pressure leaning into it. I always wanted it. But when I started to accomplish, I started to notice, oh, yeah, I don't like some of these things that come with it as well. So I have to learn how to manage it. But it was the fear of judgment which always crippled me. So I was extremely self-critical of everything. Even when I broke the world record, even when I was a two-sport All-American, even when I played the USA handball team, even when I hit my first $1 million after I was broke, I was so self-critical because at the root cause of all three of these fears is I am not enough.
Gosh.
And the I am not enoughness will destroy us. It will hold us back from our truest gifts, from expressing our love, from being generous, from being open. And that's the thing that I had to learn how to heal. Why do I not feel enough? No matter what I accomplish, I still don't feel enough. Why am I never satisfied with me? It was never about the accomplishments. It was always back to the root of me. It's I don't feel enough. I don't feel lovable is what it really is. And I need to accomplish more in order for others to love and accept me. But really, at the end of the day, I did not love and accept myself. And when we can learn the art of loving and accepting ourselves authentically for all of our flaws and all of our beauty, that's when we can start stepping into true greatness.
Lewis, I feel like you just described me.
Really?
Yeah. 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 You know, bro. Wow.
Tell me more.
Well, I don't even know that I have fixed that yet. I'm not sure. I think I've made progress on it. But this notion of, because what you just said, fear of failure, not too much.
No.
And people say, I'm afraid to succeed. I've always thought, and there's just people are different on their experience. I'm like, why would you be afraid of success?
I know.
But fear of judgment, holy smokes. I almost feel like you've created a new category that maybe if people really analyze it, a lot of us fit into that one.
Yes.
If you have a fear of failure, is it the failure you're afraid of or the judgment that would come with the failure? And so when I looked at category 3, I'm reading the book the other night because you gave it to me maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I'm like, oh man, fear of failure. It's like this old school fear of success. Yeah. Fear of judgment. Oh boy, he's on to something right here. And it is exactly what you just said. I am not enough. I'm not, and if you go even a little bit deeper, it's what you said. I had our mutual friend that you introduced me to, Leanne Rhymes, on my show. And I finally said to her in the interview, you know what my issue is? I can give love to people. I don't allow myself to feel loved.
Right.
And she said the same thing. And it's weird for two big dudes that are accomplished, two guys sitting here to share this. But I think it's powerful that we are. I'm still not sure right now that that's not something that needs more exploration for me, that I'm still, and I wonder it with you too.
Yeah.
Is there a little bit, maybe I've made progress and it's reduced, but there are a lot of moments, if I'm being real, where I should be experiencing more joy than I do from something. I should be experiencing more love than I allow myself to experience. And it's pretty obvious to me that that's probably because my dad was an alcoholic and I probably lacked a little bit of that and all that anxiety. But you are on to something so huge here, which is the next thing you have in there, which is the dream killer, which is called self-doubt.
Yeah.
I feel like judgment and self-doubt are sort of related somehow.
Yeah.
Do you?
I think self-doubt is the killer of all dreams. And that's why I love you and your message, because you instill so much belief in people. You give people belief by your presence, by just your way of being. It's so powerful.
Thank you.
And I think the whole game is learning how to believe in ourselves. That is the game of life, I think. It's what allows you to accomplish any goal you want, the more belief you have.
Yep.
And I love your definition of self-esteem and self-belief. This concept is really being your word. You've heard you say this a lot of times, like when you can live to your word and be that and honor it, or take responsibility when you're not with your word and take responsibility for that as well, you start to become more believable to yourself and others believe you as well. You become a credible person to yourself and others, and that attracts more things. So self-doubt for me is the killer of dreams. And I think I wanted to ask you another thing, a follow up on that.
The interview in you always comes out, by the way.
I know. Well, I'm just curious because I wanted to ask you about, do you worry more about the judgments of other people, or do you worry more about the judgments of yourself about you?
I think it's moved from other people to me. And I think that was probably the cause the whole time. So it was easy for me to worry about, what are they going to say? What are they going to believe? What if I fail here? Opinions of others. But I feel like that's more the symptom. If I'm just answering you right now on the moment, on the fly. I think the disease is me not believing I'm worthy of it. I was talking to a mutual friend of ours that you're about to go see, and we were both describing to each other today. He's a very successful guy. That I still have a lot of imposter syndrome at 50 years old, and this dude has no reason to have any either, and he has it. And I think even sometimes I see this in you. Now, part of me thinks that's driven me to do extra work and prepare more. And that might work when you're starting, but it's a painful way to live your life.
It's exhausting later, too.
It's exhausting. I mean, I'm so glad you're saying that, because don't you feel that way? That if I don't, and I would like you to unpack that thing, I want to go back a little bit and stay there for a minute. This idea of working on healing oneself and loving oneself. Man, everybody listen to me. I know leveraging the dark side's a common thing, and it does work, and you should do it, and there's a great space for it for a while. But if it's the only thing that moves you, don't you agree? It's just eventually miserable.
It's exhausting after a while.
It's exhausting, right?
And I think, you know, we all have our own hero's journey to fall on that dark side, you know, early to push us. It's a driver to overcome something. Right? But I think we've got to learn how to mend and heal at some point. Otherwise, it's going to constantly be exhausting and feel I'm not enough, or I'm always fighting something. I'm always trying to fight. And that was most of my life, was a fight. Everything was a fight.
Me too.
Relationship, competition, sports, business. It's all like a fight. And it's exhausting.
But you end up not winning.
Never. And the people around you don't win either. So it's a lose-lose battle. And there might feel like there's certain moments of success, but it's a lose-lose. And so my emotional coach, I started this journey 2 years ago with her, and I've been doing different healing modalities for 10 years. 10 years ago, I opened up about sexual abuse for the first time. It was about 4 months after I launched my podcast, right? So it's almost been 10 years since I started talking about that process. And I thought, man, okay, that took about 2 years to go through a process of healing that and talking about it in a safe environment where I felt like I can speak about this and it no longer triggers me or affects me or has power over me. Like I healed that memory and that wound. Now, it didn't mean but what I didn't, and I thought I was good because I was like, okay, this is the main wound, but there's other stuff that I wasn't effacing. And that's why I kept repeating patterns in relationships and intimacy and thinking, oh, I thought I healed this. But healing is not a one-time event. Healing is a journey. And it's a constant process. You're in progress, right? You're better than you were before. And I feel like I'm going to be healing for the rest of my life. Me too. And constantly holding myself accountable because, as you know, I'm sure things get you triggered from time to time, and you feel like, oh, this person did this, and I don't like it, and there's a reaction. I think that's our normal competitive edge, where it's like, I'm going to come back, I'm going to come at you. And that energy will fuel us to get results, but will not fuel us to get fulfillment. And so I've learned how to manage that energy, and I still get triggered and reactive and all these things. I'm not like this perfect human, but I do emotional coaching every 2 weeks to get me back to a place of peace. So it just helps me integrate the lessons I'm learning, reflect on, oh, I went back into that place of pain. Let me keep integrating and keep healing. And just the more I practice it, like anything, the better it gets.
Talk about Dharma a little bit. How do you figure that part out in your life?
So Dharma is a fascinating concept. I absolutely love it. And the loose language terminology for it is purpose or calling or your mission and vision in life. Like, what are you meant to do? It's kind of like what you're meant to do. And the thing about Dharma is Dharma talks about how we think we have to learn lots of stuff, when actually Dharma is unlearning and bringing out what you already have. So one of the things I mentioned in the book is that you can't be anything. There's 2 lies we've been told growing up. The first lie is you're nothing. You're stupid. You're worthless. You're not going to make it. And I'm sure many people listening and watching have heard that from teachers, parents, aunts, uncles, whoever it is. And then the other lie that we're actually told, and I don't think it's a lie, I think it's positive, but sometimes it's misconstrued, is you can be anything. And we all know that's not true too. And it's unfair because sometimes people get misled.
You're exactly right.
And the Dharma point of view is you can't be anything you want, but you can be everything you are. And what I mean by that is you have a genius, a potential, a power inside of you that you don't know yet. Why? Because you're inexperienced. It's not that you're unqualified, it's you're inexperienced. So people are saying, I'm stuck. I don't know where my life's going. I don't know what my purpose is. So you're perceiving yourself to be unqualified or underqualified. Actually, you're just inexperienced. You just haven't done enough things to let the magnet of your life tell you what it's attracted to. Whoa. So for me, that's what Dharma is encouraging people to do. And this beautiful verse from this Vedic text, a monk text called the Manusmriti. And it says that when you protect your purpose protects you. And what I love about that, and you will appreciate this because I know you're someone that I feel is living this.
Thank you.
A purpose is like a rare gem and you have to protect it. People will tell you that gem is worthless. They'll tell you that that gem is not going to make it. They'll tell you that that gem, that jewel has no value. And that's why you have to protect your own purpose because the world is going to constantly try and pull you away from it. So Dharma is it's not a belief system, it's a fact that you've got skills, genius, potential is sitting inside of you and you have not seen it yet. And I've seen this across the board. I literally just got a call from the CEO of Instagram probably about 3 to 6 months ago. It's been a while now. And she called me up and she said, Jay, we just had, I don't think I've told the story anyway, so you've sparked it out of me, but she goes, we've just had this talk from this speaker that we brought in. And this speaker spent years in a refugee camp. And in this refugee camp, not only did he figure out how to survive, he actually got his mother to save up for a computer and he coded a game. He taught himself how to code and he coded a game that helps people understand how not to be violent in a refugee camp.
Gosh.
And then he used Facebook to promote it.
My gosh.
And they said we were so inspired by him that we brought him in to speak to Instagram and Facebook. And then we asked him the question. We asked him, what has had the impact on you? Like, what kept you inspired? And this guy goes, oh, I used to watch this guy called Jay Shetty on Facebook. And literally, when she told me that, and she said literally the whole audience was in tears at his story. And I said to her, I need to talk to him right away because I need to tell him. I'm like, dude, you've just inspired me. I'm like, dude, your life is way harder than mine's ever been. And if you can realize that you have the potential in a refugee camp to teach yourself how to code and to help people not be violent, I mean, you're inspiring more lives. His name's Luau Mayan. I'm like, dude, you're inspiring so many more lives than I ever, like, it's just beautiful. And to me, that story, I'm not sharing it to show my role in his life. I'm sharing it because I'm like, if he can find a way to find his Dharma, then we haven't got any excuses.
Brother, it's funny. Right before you told the story about him, I was going to tell you that it's so obvious to me that you're in your home. And that's perfect evidence of it. It's so obvious to me as I sit next to you. And the book, guys, I want you to get this book. It has my full endorsement. And the reason it does, first off, is because this man that you're hearing these incredible words from wrote it. But it's a unique book because it talks about these principles that are eternally true. But there's also like what I would call fundamental strategy. I was going to say basic, but it's not basic. It's fundamental strategies. I was surprised in a book that talks so much about happiness that you get as granular as a morning routine, right? Which I'm a huge believer of. And I think sometimes, but you do it differently.
Right.
And so I only going to go through a few things because we wanted to read the book, right? But like, just so you know, guys, we're at 1%, less than 1% of the book so far.
You're very kind.
But it's true. But so talk a little bit just tactically for a second about importance of it and the way that you perceive a morning routine. Yeah.
So the beautiful thing about monk life is half the day is self and half the day is service. That's how you're taught to live. Okay. So the morning hours are for you to fill yourself. It's almost like putting on mental, emotional, and physical armor. Like that's what a morning routine is. Our days are tiring. Our days are busy. Our days are draining. Well, guess what? If you didn't put your armor on in the morning and you're going out to battle, how many knives are going to cut you? How many swords are going to pierce you? How many wounds are you going to come home with? How many of you come back home feeling wounded? I come back home feeling wounded sometimes. But guess what? If you put your armor on in the morning, a warrior would never go out onto a battlefield. And life can be a battlefield. Work can be full of conflict sometimes. Your relationships can be damaging sometimes. Your friendships can be toxic sometimes. So we are warriors in one sense. Sure. And so without wearing that, so for me, a morning routine is putting on emotional armor, which is meant to protect you for the rest of the day. And that way, even if you do get pierced, or you do get popped, or you do get cut, you're protected. And I know that when my morning routine is at its best, I feel protected.
I know exactly.
Whereas when my morning routine is weakened, I feel weak. And so for me, the morning routine, as I get strategic about it, there's two principles you have to know. Location has energy and time has memory. If you do something in the same place every day, that place now holds that energy. And this is huge, like it's just so big, and I'm grateful for that reaction, because people don't realize how powerful this is. Like when I meditated in temples that were 5,000 years old in South India, it was easier to meditate because people have been meditating there for thousands of years. Wow, it's so good. And so when you find a space in your home, and even if you got, like I lived in a 500 square foot apartment in New York 4 years ago, and I just had a tiny corner which I dedicated to my sacred practices. So if you don't have to have a big home to do this, you don't have to be wealthy to do this, you can find just a corner in your home that you dedicate as your meditation space or your reflection space. So first thing, location has energy. Second thing, time has memory. And this is something that people underestimate. When you do something at the same time every day, you remember it and time remembers it. That's why we struggle to work out at different times every day. It's why we struggle. Like, why do we feel hungry at the same time every day? Generally, we feel hungry at the same time. Most people, if you've got a regulated diet, you will feel hungry. You will feel tired at the same time every day. You will look towards that Coke can or that sugar or that chocolate bar at the same time every day. And so when you're meditating at the same time, if you're exercising at the same time, so what I recommend to people is your morning routine needs 4 aspects, and it's simple, and I call it time. It's about making time in the day. Okay. So time stands for T-I-M-E. T stands for thankfulness. There needs to be, even if it's 5 minutes of thankfulness, of gratitude every single morning, and that has to be gratitude that's specific. It can't be gratitude that's generic. So generic gratitude is something that anyone could be grateful for. Oh, I'm grateful for the sky. I'm grateful for air. I'm grateful for water. That's cool, but it's generic gratitude. Specific gratitude is I'm grateful for the fact that I have someone calling me this morning. I'm grateful for the fact that I can still call my parents. I'm grateful for the fact that I have this person in my business who is having such an impact. I'm grateful, it's specific.
Specificity.
Yeah, so thankfulness. Second one is insight. I think this is one thing that a lot of people are missing, which I recommend people listening to you. It's like podcasts, books, and make it easier for yourself. If you get this book, leave it open on your bedside table. Leave it open on your kitchen table. Leave it open on your dining table. I guarantee you will read more, and what you read will speak to you. And I think people underestimate that literally, like when you have it open and you'll just flick to a chapter randomly and you pick up one line, it will impact you and it will speak to you. So insight, you need insight every day. M is meditation, and I believe meditation is different for different people. As monks, we did walking meditations, we did beach meditations, we did visualizations, we did breath work. Find your meditation practice. I give a ton in the book. And fourth, obviously exercise, which you can speak to even more than I can. I exercise to keep fit. You look amazing too, though. But it's an exercise. Everyone needs to find 5 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day of exercise that can just get them moving. And guess what? If you like sport, play sport with a friend. If you want to shoot hoops, go and shoot hoops. You don't have to sit on a treadmill. No one's telling you to do that. Make it fun and playful.
Brother, I've been in personal development and business entrepreneur space for a long time. Those are 2 gigantic revelations that I've never heard before. I'm telling you that for me, in the book, right, I'm reading it, and I literally stopped the book and I brought both my kids in, and we talked about this idea of that space having an energy to it. And I want to validate it because I just think you're incredible. Everybody, this is why I want you to get the book, and it's why if you're not, you must be following Jay on these different platforms, not just one either. You need to be on his YouTube, you need to be on his Instagram, his Facebook. But I'll share this with you because I'm sure he's a hero of yours. When I was very young, when I was younger, actually about your age, ironically, I'm running on the beach in Hawaii, and it's early in the morning, so I did my morning run, speaking about exercise. And passing me by on the beach was this man. I saw him from a distance. Anyway, he gets by me and he starts to go the other way, and it was Wayne Dyer.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Love Wayne Dyer.
And a lot of people listening to this probably don't know
Wayne Dyer. You should check, he's not alive, but you should check out Wayne Dyer's work. His books are unbelievable.
He's one of the godfathers of, he was somebody that's really made an impact. I ended up getting a chance, long story short, sitting on the beach with him for about an hour as the sun comes up talking about life. You talk about just the two of us, right? However, one of the principles he taught me that day, and you articulate it, quite frankly, more beautifully and more specifically than even he did, but I want to validate it again because these are things that you're not getting on any other podcast, is what Jay and I are talking about right now. And he asked me, he said, are you going to write a book and do you prepare speeches? I said, I do. And he says, one of the things I do is I have lots of the greatest books in the world surround me when I write because these books have that time and energy in them.
Yes.
And he believed that it gave him the great wisdom of all of these people when he just surrounded himself in that familiar space.
Yeah.
So for you to now put this in your book about a morning routine is remarkable because that was just a passing thought that's really written nowhere. So
wow.
Thank God for you, bro.
I appreciate that, man. And you just sparked actually Phil Knight, Shoe Dog, Nike. It's like he talks about how he actually has a room where he keeps his books, like a library, but he takes his shoes off when he enters that room because of the wisdom and the weight and the energy and the gravitas he believes books hold. And so even as monks, we would never wear shoes around books because it was considered shoes are dirty and you wear them outdoors. And books are so pure that you don't want to take dirt into that space. And supposedly, Phil Knight, he does the same thing. And I was like, Phil Knight's thinking like a monk.
So he's a
like,
monk.
Yeah, he's thinking like a monk. Like,
So cool.
But it's just so interesting what you're saying about like books holding energy.
Yes.
Like we believe that books are sacred. You don't kick books. You don't keep books on the floor because they have knowledge and they're meant to raise you up. So,
wow.
Yeah.
There's so much in there. I want to go through a couple more things.
Yeah.
So I want to have the book, but I'm so fascinated by you. I got a couple personal things
Let's
I want
do
to
it,
ask you.
man.
But one of the things you say in the book, I've said this before, and again, I just like the way you approach it with more depth than I've covered it before. I just said this week to somebody, they looked at me like I was crazy, and I said, some of your low self-esteem and your lack of confidence is actually an ego issue that you have. And the person stared back at me like, how in the world is someone with low confidence or low self-esteem struggling from an ego issue? And I don't know that I articulated it well enough, although it's in one of the podcasts that I've released, one of my solo podcasts, but you articulate it right on. So talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so it's an interesting concept, and it's talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, another monk text. And in the book, it talks about how like ego is demonstrated in two ways. So ego is either I am the best in the world and I think I'm better than everyone, or ego says you're the worst in the world. You're the worst than everyone. You're much worse than everyone. Or you say my life is the best and the greatest. My life is the worst, right? My life is far worse than anyone else. So the ego likes to push you to the extreme. It doesn't like to give you balance and honesty and reality. It wants to make you feel like you've got the worst life in the world and no one else understands it. No one gets that. Only you get it and you get the worst. Or you're the best and no one else gets you. You're untouchable. And people miss that. Yes. They're like, how does that make sense? Exactly like you said. But it does make sense because the ego wants to be the top or the bottom. But the top of the bottom.
Yes.
It doesn't just want to be at the bottom.
It
wants
wants to be the bottom of the bottom.
Yeah, it's got to be the bottom of the bottom of the bottom, but the top of the bottom, right?
Very
you know
well
what I mean?
said.
Yeah, and so we get lost in that and we don't think of it as ego.
Yeah.
And that's why the only antidote to either ego is self-honesty, is being honest. And honesty is, I'm good at these things, I'm great at these things, and I suck at these things, right? Like that's honesty. Like, and we could all sit down, me and you could sit down with a list of our skills and map out what we were great at, what we were average at, and what we knew we were terrible at.
Yes.
And that's honesty. That keeps you so away from either ego.
So you're a young dude, you got this business, you're working multiple jobs, you're living at your place of business, right? And probably everyone in your family thinks you're out of your mind.
Oh, dude, yeah. Trust me. My dad was the only person in my life that has never told me. Not the only person that believed in me. He's the only person that never told me I was wrong, like for doing it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and people, and that's why I don't have a lot of sympathy for people when they're like, oh, my so-and-so is telling me this and that. And I said, look, dude, nobody's going to believe in you until you've done something.
That's right.
Have you done anything to make people believe in you?
Right.
You know, you don't just get people to believe in you. You got to do shit, you know? And, and, you know, that's the way it is. And my dad had done that, so he knew that
He
it
knew
could
the
be
grind.
done.
He knew
you
the
know?
grind.
And,
but 10 years is a long grind. You know what I mean? Like it's totally worth it.
Right.
But like, what do you have? Like I always say this all the time: is your will to win for sale, right?
Yeah.
Like most people can be bought. Like enough failure, they'll buy their dream out. They'll buy them out. They'll quit. You couldn't have been bought all those years. You had no money being made.
No, and I still couldn't. I mean, I've had 9-figure buyout offers on our companies, 3 of them. and I won't do it because I know what we can do. And now, like I said before, my purpose has changed. My purpose isn't now, let's buy all this cool shit and be a baller like it used to be when I was younger. Now it's, I want my guys, I want my team, I want my people to succeed, and I know what we can create on the back end, and so I don't want to sell that out.
We both want you to stack a bunch of money away. We both want you to have great stuff like this and live all that, but we both are just literally talking off camera saying what endures is when you shift from that stuff to wanting to serve other people, because that like never burns out.
And you know what's funny about that too is I found that when you switch your focus to other people, your income goes up anyway.
Big time.
Yeah.
Right. Actually, it takes some pressure off you, oddly, right? It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but it takes pressure off you. Go back a little bit in the beginning. Just want to talk about this because we were talking about it. I didn't even notice it, but you pointed to your face to me and said, hey, I've had stuff happen, man. Like, not all this was just business grind. Because a lot of you that are watching this too, your business isn't where you'd like it to be maybe, or your life isn't. Like, stuff happens outside of business that can distract us too, right? There's issues with your family, there's health, there's all kinds of stuff that happens outside your business too. So tell them, how'd you get these scars? What happened?
So when I was in college, like we said, we had to work other jobs while and we were also going to school, by the way. I did all this, but I was walking home from one of my jobs, and I was walking home with a girl that I was good friends with, and I ended up getting stabbed. Is the long story, the short story of it. I got in an altercation. This dude, she was Mexican, and this guy was calling her some racial slurs, and I'm a young testosterone-filled dude. I'm not going to deal with that.
Right.
It's not my personality to deal with that kind of shit anyway. I'm an athlete like you, and you know how athletes are. Like, dude, it's gonna get physical.
It's about to be physical.
And we got in an argument, and I turned my back, and when I turned my back, he stabbed me, and he stabbed me here, and he stabbed me here, and in my back, and I had 160 stitches in my face. Still no feeling in this side of my face at all. The last thing I remember on the way to the hospital was the EMT on the radio saying, I don't know how to stop the bleeding.
Oh my God.
And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna die for sure. Because like, it was like what you see in the movie, like blood was squirting out. Like, and so basically.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so that was the easy part of it. The hard part of it was what happened after that. My face was very swollen, it was very deformed. It looks really good now because it's been 15 years since it happened. But I worked retail, and I had people coming in to the retail store every day, and they would do one of two things. They would either look at the floor when they talked to me because they didn't want to stare at my face, or they would say, dude, what happened to your fucking face? And I'm like, I'm getting this all the time, and really, honestly, I would have rather people say that to me than look at the floor. Like, you know how
yes.
When you see someone who's got a handicap or they have a disability, our tendency is to not want to stare, so we overcompensate by looking away.
You're right.
Don't do that because it makes people feel really shitty. Okay, and I know that from experience. And but anyway, I went through very bad depression. My face was messed up. I was a young man. I thought my life was over. I thought my business wasn't succeeding. I started thinking about like, no woman's gonna ever want to date me. My life is over type of stuff. And I built it into this big deal. I became very depressed and to a level of suicidal on a regular basis. And I actually was able to come out of that in about 10 minutes time. I was walking through a grocery store, and I was pushing my cart down the aisle, and I came to the end of the aisle and I hit another cart. And I looked over at the person who ran in the cart, and I looked at him, and I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman because they were so badly burned. Like their hands, their face, completely unrecognizable of a man or a woman. And I looked up, and it was a woman, by the way, and she looked at me, and she looked right at my face, and she goes, man, what the fuck happened to your face? and dude, I start dying laughing. Because she knows what I've been through, and I know what she's been through. And it turns out what happened was she had been in a plane crash, and her whole family had been killed in the plane crash, and she was the only person to survive. And we sat there and we talked for like 10, 15 minutes, about what had happened to her and what had happened to me, and we had a good laugh about it. We laughed at other people, how they were so dumb for looking at the floor, all the stuff we just talked about.
Yeah.
And it changed my perspective immediately. I went from feeling bad, I went from being depressed, I went from having all these struggles to saying, you know what? This is not bad. Like, this is not even, this is a good thing. And so I chose to start seeing it as something that would eventually teach me something. And it turns out, it ended up being really good for business, because back then when Chris and I would go to trade shows, nobody knew who we were, all right?
Okay.
After I got stabbed and my face was swollen, I had scars all over it, I would talk to people and they would remember me.
Oh my
yeah, so I would go to these trade shows and people would be like, they'd be like, oh, hey, you know, those guys from Supplement Superstore. And they'd be like, no, we don't know those. You know Andy, the dude with the scars on his face.
No way.
Yeah, and so what happened was people started remembering us because of it.
Yeah,
and
now they know Andy the multimillionaire, but then it was Andy the dude with the scars on his face.
But you know what? When you try so hard to stand out, and it's important in business to stand out and be memorable, I was blessed with an opportunity to make me naturally memorable.
Wow.
And so it ended up serving me, and that's how I see it now. I actually see it as one of the best things that ever happened to me.
I believe that too. By the way, that's probably my favorite story I've ever had on the show, right there. That's probably my favorite story. And let me tell you the reason why. First off, it's not the events that happen to us, it's the meaning we attach to the events, right? Because events happen to everybody, and so eventually what you did, is you attached a new meaning to the event. It served you. It happened for you, not to you.
Yes, and it took that interaction, and I believe God put that interaction in place. I mean, that was not a coincidence.
No way.
Dude.
Of all the people walking in the world, your cart bumps into someone
that saved me, man.
That's crazy.
And dude, we have literally millions of conversations, right? Over the course of your career. You've had a million conversations with a million different people. I can definitively say that conversation was the most impactful conversation.
Crazy.
And it was a random, chance encounter, and it was the most powerful conversation that I've ever had in my life, just because it made me understand that A, things could be way worse.
Right.
Okay, and B, no matter how bad things are, there's always good that can come of them. And
amen. I believe that totally.
Totally, dude. And like people will, like when I say that, I always get a lot of pushback. They'll be like, well, what about these kids that die from cancer? Well, yeah, that's terrible. And I agree. There's not much good that comes from that. But the one thing that is good that comes from those kind of situations is that we can choose to appreciate our own mortality and learn how to appreciate the people in our lives while we have them. Because I feel like so many people, they live for this thing that doesn't exist because we're ambitious, right? We're always want more. We're always want to do more. We always want to accomplish more. And so for that reason, and I know you've probably had this situation before, you start neglecting the now for this later, right?
All the time. I struggle with that now.
Yeah,
I still do it. It's one of the things.
Too.
I'm so ambitious. I'm so driven. It's like, hey, be present right now.
But I promise, and I think you'll agree with me, that being able to be ambitious and also be present is extremely important, because if you're always ambitious and you're not like you guys who are like young right now and you're not where you want to be, and you think, oh, I want to be a millionaire and whenever I make this much money, I'll be this. You won't. That's not what's going to define you. What's going to define you is the relationships that you're having now. And appreciating those, and those will help build you into that. But you know how people like, you used to think before you had any money or you had any success, you probably thought, man, once I get here, it'll be different. Once I get here, it'll be this.
That was my constant conversation. Once I get there, then I'll relax and enjoy it. Once I get there, then I'll have fun. Once I get there, and then I'm like, there was never this place.
Right.
There was never. And that's the difference. You and I were talking earlier. I'm really enjoying this, by the way. It's the difference for me of being successful and being fulfilled, right? You can have all the success and not be fulfilled, but if you can be present now, you can be fulfilled. And here's the one thing. I'll tell you, if you can be happy where you are now, you're really going to be happy once these other things come. But if you're not happy now,
it's going to accelerate the problems.
It does.
Yeah, and amplify.
We have friends that we see that. It's like they're more unhappy, they're more stressed, they're more depressed. It's funny that we're talking about this, because people that knew you and I were meeting, right? They're like, oh, it's the clash of the alpha males, and then you and I meet each other, and it's interesting because I think when you see someone who's built a great life, or like in your case, like they built the big dude, strong dude, lots of confidence, we're giving people advice. I think they go, these are super confident people, right? And the truth is, I think when you see someone like us that way, I think when you look at us now, these are people that had to come from a further place. Like, we're both introverted. We're both shy. We both probably have, I bet you that both of us have a more natural dose of insecurity than a normal person.
There's no question. Like, that's why we're so driven.
That's why we're driven. And I had to figure out, and I want those of you that hear this, I had to figure out young. I was like, okay, I know how insecure I am.
Thing.
Not at all.
So people hear insecure and they automatically attach, like they take it as a dig, because they've heard it like in dating. Oh, you're jealous because you're insecure.
Right.
Well, yeah, maybe, but I'm also driven, and I'm also wanting to win, and I also have something to prove. And that's a great thing. That's another example of taking something that would normally be a negative and turning it's alchemy, right? It's taking something and turning it into something that is valuable.
I agree.
And you know, being insecure, and I say this a lot on my podcast because people don't like to talk about it, because like a lot of people in our position who are out there making content for people, their egos are too big to admit it.
Right.
I'm not, dude. I'll tell you right now.
Me too.
I got a ton of shit to prove.
Me too.
And I'm gonna fucking prove it.
Me too.
You know, and if that's how you feel, you've got all your family, you've got all your friends, and they're telling you can't do it, you can't do this, and you want to prove them wrong. Good.
That's right. That is good.
Yeah,
that's a good
that's
thing.
good. That's
good. Don't you think my insecurity is because I'm so wanting to be this other version of me, the best version of me, and I compare it to who I am now? That makes me insecure. Like, I don't want to be comfortable with me. I don't want to think I've got it all figured out. Of course.
What's good about comfort? We were just talking about this over here. You know, you accomplish this. You get the houses, you get the jet, you get the cars, you get the life, you get the company, and then what?
And then what?
And
what have you and I both determined the then what is?
To serve other people.
You got it.
Right. And that's, people are always like, and I'm sure they're asking you, they're like, Ed, why are you doing all this? Why are you making this content? You're a multimillionaire. You've got all these things. You don't have to do that because it's a call. It's a calling. Like people say in faith. Right, Vaughn? In faith. All right? It's a calling. Like I feel an obligation so I grew up with an extremely intelligent, driven, amazing father. And like, dude,
me too.
And if people would have seen how he raised me, they would have said that he was probably abusive because, dude, he was hard, man. But here's the deal. I want people to, my dad prepared me for the reality. And I want people to be prepared too, because I feel like the younger generation, a lot of the people watching right now are not taught the truth. They're taught that everybody wins, everybody's special, everybody, you know, is probably going to end up being a multimillionaire. Everybody loves you, and that's not the truth.
It's the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah. So they get taught this thing. I mean, they don't even keep score now in kids' games. They get taught this thing up until they're 20 years old, and then they're kicked out in the real world. And then what happens? The real world stomps them.
More and more, I think that's why this generation's having a harder time. There's more and more people out there that want to be entrepreneurs, that want to be successful, that see it more than ever.
Yeah.
But their wiring needs to change.
Yes.
You need to be a little harder, a little tougher, a little more in love with the grind, a little bit harder working on yourself. And also, you got to work like it's going to happen now, but you got to be patient as hell. How do you stay hungry as you're winning? Because this, all people watching out there, they're achievers.
Yeah.
And you know what? They do slow down when they get to a level. They do slow down when they get some accolades. They don't stay as hungry.
Everybody
How have you stayed like that? Why is your will to win not for sale?
Yeah, because the thirst is for potential. You know, my play is not money. It's not a bigger plane. It's not more real estate. Even though I want all those things, it is potential. It is the discovery of my potential. You know, so I'm interested in what could I do? What can I do? How far can I go? Could I translate my material? You know, could my material live, like, could I become immortal?
Yeah.
Grant Cardone. Could Grant Cardone the name, not the body? It can't.
Right.
It's impossible. But could I do something of biblical proportions?
You believe that you're capable of doing something huge in your
I
life?
told my sister called me one day. My oldest sister called and said, she's 74, and she's like, you know, she was just ragging on me. Fox said you're a business expert. This is an ongoing joke, you know. And then I get interviewed by CNBC on some real estate. They're calling you the real estate expert, and then they're calling you this. And she's making fun of me, right? I said, and she's like, what are you up to? I said, I'm going to do something in my lifetime that, like, lives on for biblical proportions at times, thousands of years. So
is that why you write? Is that why you write the books? They'll be there someday?
Yeah, totally. They'll be there, you know, but I got to translate them now because the Chinese can't read that book, right?
Yeah.
The Spanish can't read that book, and Canadians and Australians and Americans can read it, but can I even get it out to them? So I'm interested. I know my technology. What I teach and what I write is unique. I sit down and look at things in life.
Even your verbiage is different than everybody else's. You don't use everybody else's words.
I don't copy people.
You don't. Your verbiage is totally.
I don't copy people. I call out people when I think it's bullshit.
Yep.
You know, the 4-hour work week. I'm just telling you, ain't nobody in their freaking lifetime ever done a 4-hour work week and actually created something.
Absolutely.
The solopreneur. It's garbage. It's bullshit. It's just popular. It's just an idea that you're going to work for yourself.
Yeah. yeah.
You know, when people tell me that you're better off making 42 grand at home than you are working for somebody else, my response is nobody's better off making 42 grand.
Oh God, that's ridiculous.
You know, when somebody says network marketing's a bad thing, I'm like, they're stupid. It's just
They're
dumb.
stupid, right?
Okay.
There's only thousands of people who are winning doing it.
Yeah,
controlling the
exactly.
future.
So don't be stupid. Don't regurgitate stupidity.
Yeah, you don't accept stupid ideas just because they're accepted by the masses of people.
Yeah, and I don't take advice from quitters. And the only people that say network marketing is a bad thing
Quit.
are people that quit it. And by the way, those that never started it were also quitting it.
Yeah.
The only reason they would know about it is they considered it for a second and then didn't do it, and now they're justified why they didn't.
So speaking of that, on the network marketing, recruiting sort of flavored thing that we're talking about, in my business, I tell people to get wide. And what in my business, what getting wide is a little bit different, but getting wide means you're going to have lots of agents that report directly to you. It spreads out your influence, it spreads out your risk, et cetera, et cetera. But you also talk about in your business, you getting wide. You talk about that. What's you getting wide mean in your world? What's it mean?
Like I made a mistake with money, not using money.
Yep, excuse me.
Using, becoming this guy that became wealthy and still acting like a pauper.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened was that basically shrunk me back into being a pauper, small.
Yes.
So look, you never commit one crime. Nobody ever commits one crime. So where you find one crime in life, and by the way, you're committing a crime on yourself when you make these mistakes. There's other crimes of a similar nature. Well, I'd also not taken my brand wide. Okay. I was good in this one vertical.
Yeah.
I mean, I was great at it. I was like the best.
Okay.
And I didn't start crossing over to other verticals.
That was in the car business?
Yeah, exactly. Because I was selling out for this money right here.
Yes.
Because it was easy money.
Yes.
And just like you described the guy that's satisfied, right?
Yes.
They settled in. I had settled in this vertical.
Okay.
And so, and look, when you're around a bunch of people that are in a vertical, that have also settled, that are trapped in some narrow band, they're not going to tell you to go this way, and go out here. They're going to tell you, oh, it's hard, it's almost impossible, nobody's ever done it, you're going to lose your audience, which you're going to probably lose some audience. It is very difficult. Probably one of the most difficult things I've done is go this way. Like it was really, really difficult because I didn't want to lose this audience.
And you did lose a little of it.
Sure I did.
Yeah.
These people were pissed off, man. When they saw me actually making moves and succeeding, people were like, oh, my competitors took advantage of it. See, he's interested in other stuff, not just this.
Yeah.
So they try to take advantage of it. Because I'm spending energy over here, I lose a little bit of something here.
Yep.
So
how do you do that, man? Like and I got a couple of specific things after that, but like you talk about you're able to be bold about what you believe in and your faith. You're gonna take some shots for that, right? You're gonna take some shots for having the gun thing at Mandalay, right? You took some shots, and you knew that by going to spreading your width of your influence, right? And I think, and it's just interesting. In today's world, it seems to me the thing that holds most people back is their worry and fear about criticism and what other people are going to think about them. I mean, it's just they're obsessed with it. I think social media's been good, but the bad part is how many likes did I get? What are they going to think about this? Are people thinking I'm happy? Am I going to get criticism? How do you just not care, or do you care and you do it anyway?
No, I care and I don't look.
You don't look.
What, you know what I'm saying? Like we were talking earlier, and I was showing you this little thing I do. This one of these little rituals I do. You talk about rituals and this little thing, because I was passing across this article that I'd shown Ed, that I'd posted. And I said, Ed, anytime I look at anything, while I'm with you having a conversation and tell my people to do this, grab something, post it another place, push it some other place. So we multi-purpose everything.
You do, man. You're after that stuff all the time.
Yeah, so you'll see me doing a lot of different things in a lot of different spaces, pieces and parts of it, little clips of videos, audio, so we multi-purpose because I'm trying to go all these different directions, and I don't know how people want to consume data.
Okay, so
the point is, back to this is, I don't really look at whether you liked it or not.
It's not on your radar screen.
Yeah. Now, I do have staff that tells me to take stuff down. In fact, they don't tell me anymore. They just take it down.
They do.
So Sherry kind of runs control, kind of Hurricane Irma pickup.
Yes.
So does my wife. So they're like, they know I'm a hurricane.
Yep.
They know I'm going to destroy stuff.
Yep.
I'm going to tear trees out, dude. I'm going to damage stuff. I am a hurricane.
Yep.
I'm a hurricane that never stops.
I think every great entrepreneur is a bit of a hurricane.
Yeah.
And I think the ones that struggle are trying to keep everything clean, neat, tidy, and organized. Being an entrepreneur is messy.
Yeah. And this is the guy I don't want to be. I don't want to be the successful uncle that went into hiding now.
Yeah, me either.
Or the billionaire that there's no access.
Right.
You want
to spread it.
Yeah, I don't know Mark Cuban's wife. I've never seen her.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, I've never seen Elon Musk's wife. I've seen one interview with her, okay? Warren's wife. I want my wife to be out there.
Yeah.
I want you guys to know my kids. I want you to see the mistakes I make in my life. I want to see behind the curtain.
Yeah, I think they're not following an image. I think they're actually following you. I think they're actually following you through your life, and I think you're helping lead them too. I think it inspires them. I think that's a huge there's a couple big differences. Both you and I have actually done something in our lives. So when we're preaching to people out there in the world, we're actually coming from a place of experience and some real value. We're not making our bio up as we go along, which is most people, I think, out there in this space. I think most people in this space are just literally blogging and talking about crap they've actually never done in their lives, and somehow it becomes scripture to people that follow them, whereas you and I actually have real businesses, real companies, real net worths. But let's go through some rapid fire stuff. But
let me just go back to it. There was a time in my life, like, you know, the person that's been most dissatisfied with me is me. I wanted to be able to teach other people sales.
Yes.
And then I learned how to do that.
Yep.
And I was making millions of dollars a year doing that.
Yep.
But I was not a businessman yet.
Yeah.
And it killed me. And it killed me that I wasn't a businessman. I was a speaker. I was a speaker, okay? Writing a book would not have solved that for me, okay? So I started a second business with a partner. He exceeded what I was doing in that speaking business. He was the businessman, I was the partner.
You still weren't.
I still wasn't a businessman. I started the real estate business, and we had, 400 or 500 units. I was an investor. I still wasn't running a business. So literally, it has been like 4 or 5 of these before I was like, okay, now I'm a businessman.
Wow.
So it's literally like in the last 7 or 8, maybe 10 years that I really felt, okay, now I'm a legitimate, for the first time in my career.
Was there something that changed, a catalyst? It was just steps, just process?
Well, it's part of what we talked about earlier, lifting off the disabilities like that were covering me up to play a small game, to be a sales guy, to be an author, to be a speaker. These were really small, tiny games.
Yes.
You know, to be just the father.
Yeah.
You know, to be.
Don't you love those guys? Hey, I'm a good dad.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's a ticket into, I mean, you're supposed to be a good dad.
Happy's a label, by the way.
Yeah.
Happy's a label, just like ADD.
Yeah.
Okay, they're both made up.
They're both made up.
So these are limitations, because I could be happy.
Yeah.
You know, I could be attention deficit disorder. I could have it. I could have it for a second because, but I can have total attention in this interview.
Right.
So maybe I have an attention deficit because nobody got my attention.
Right. People get your. Both of us don't believe in most of these labels, or if any of them out there. You're beyond confident. You're certain. The more certain person wins, right? I think that's because you've kept promises you make to yourself. I think the number one requirement in being a confident person is that you start by when I meet someone who lacks self-confidence in an area, I'll tell myself this is someone who just simply doesn't keep the promises they make to themselves in that area.
I like
right?
that.
And that's the reverse is true in your body.
Yeah.
You and I have talked a lot about that before. Like you look great, but your confidence level and your fitness and all that stuff isn't the same as it is in business. It's probably because you miss some workouts once in a while. I'm serious.
Yeah. No, I do. And
no, it's an area that we talk about.
But it's also like, okay. So
no, but it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. No, go ahead. What are you gonna say?
Well,
say it.
I've just never.
It's not a priority.
Exactly.
You told me that.
I've never invested much time in my body.
Yeah, you told me that.
Like I know some people like literally when I get ready, I don't even look. I'll go 3 and 4 days without looking at myself.
You told me that.
So and part of that, you know, is freedom. Like I'm not locked up in this identity of being 5'8" and 170 pounds. I don't think I'm a body.
Right, I know that.
I am not a physical unit.
That's right. The difference with me and you is that, so first off, I know that you think that, and I know that's not a part. This is really good. So I'm going to tell you something that I think I have, okay? Part of my confidence in business is that I think my body, I think nowadays more and more business people train like athletes, and more athletes train like business people. LeBron James is not the same guy that Julius Erving was, right? LeBron James is a businessman, like Jay-Z says. He's a businessman, right? And so more of these guys, Tom Brady has a best-selling book out right now, right? He's a businessman. And so more athletes think like businessmen.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think, and by the way, you are super fit, but I think one of the advantages for people, if they can keep their body fit, not big or muscular, but high energy and healthy. I watch what you eat. You do eat healthy. You do eat clean. We just did right now.
You
give me that little terrible thing you made me eat.
I put good fuel in my car, but I'll tell you today, I still don't put premium.
I know you don't.
I don't put the best gas in my car because I think it's a scam. But I just put whatever,
Me either.
Yeah, I put the best gas in there to get me from back and forth because it's a lease car anyway. I'm gonna flip it and turn it in. And
Me
say
too.
bye-bye.
But I think your business self-confidence comes from doing that. There's another thing I observed about you. I want to ask you about it. You're aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
You are aggressive. What that means is even if you have a plan.
I'm probably the most aggressive
I agree.
business person I know.
Me too. I think you're the most aggressive business person that I've met. And the other thing you'll do is in the moment you'll jump on something. Like if it's not planned and it could get something done, it could close, it could grow something, you'll do it. Talk about that for a minute. How important is aggression, being offensive, jumping on the moment?
Dude, I walk into every environment looking for a deal to ink. You know, I'm just telling you, if you need to know, or when you're with me, I'm looking for a deal.
Yeah.
I don't care if it was my mama. If my mom died about 8 years ago, I guess. But if she came back, I mean, literally, if I had 30 minutes with her, I'd spend 28 minutes, you know, just reminiscing and 2 minutes trying to close her for something. Shit. I'd be like, there got to be something you got.
Yeah, and you lose interest quick if that's not there. You're out of it.
Well, I don't lose interest quick, but I definitely try to set up something for later. You know, so you know, I believe in my product. So like, I'm always looking to how do I insert the product.
Yeah.
I'm way beyond now anybody calling me a sales guy.
Yeah.
He's always selling. He's always marketing.
Right.
He's always promoting. Yeah, you can say all those things about me. I already know that.
Right, of course you are.
Okay, let me say it for you.
Yeah.
I'm always selling, I'm always promoting, I'm always marketing. Okay, so you're not tell me something about myself I don't know, because I already know that.
Yeah, and those are positives.
Yeah,
Those
and you're saying it about me because you don't do it yourself.
That's correct.